I am thrilled to introduce Christine Silva, Haitian American. Christine Silva is the founder and executive director to College Fellowship, whose goal is to secure the acceptance of as many driven low-income students into top-tier universities as possible. Christine earned a Master of Arts in Journalism from New York University and a Bachelor of Arts cum laude in Political Science from Harriet L. Wilkes Honors College of Florida Atlantic University. While she began her career as an associate producer of documentaries for broadcasters such as PBS and HBO, Christine realized her passion for educating and mentoring adolescents through running the journalism department at a career high school in Riviera Beach, Florida. Since then, Christine has been on the front lines of guiding and encouraging bright students to apply to selective universities. Her life's mission is to answer and address one of society's most urgent educational inequities: access to higher education. Most importantly, Christine has a deep understanding of some of the systemic challenges holding our best and brightest back from achieving the highest levels of their academic potential. Path to college is the way beyond these obstacles for the most overlooked and most hardworking students. Since founding, 75% of Path to College graduates have been accepted into top-tier universities with full-ride scholarships. I am thrilled to introduce Dr. Kisha Ibeovine. Dr. Kisha Ibeovine is Jamaican American, founder and CEO of NUU, Physicians Wellness Program in Miami, Florida. She is a nutritionist, weight loss coach, and intermittent fasting expert. Dr. Kisha is also a board-certified optometrist, physician, and maintains an active license in the state of Florida. She received her doctorate from Inter-American University of Puerto Rico and a bachelor's degree in nutritional science from University of Florida. I am thrilled to introduce Mayra Lee Hernandez Ruiz. Dr. Mayra Lee Hernandez Ruiz was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and after earning her master's degree in social work from the University of Puerto Rico, she relocated to Philadelphia, PA in 1993. She has more than 20 years of professional experience working in the nonprofit sector in higher education settings and is an adjunct faculty member at Miami-Dade College, Social Science Department. In 2019, she graduated with utmost distinction from Albizu University, Doral campus, with a doctorate degree from the Human Services Doctoral Program. She is the newly elected president at the National Conference of Puerto Rican Women, Miami Chapter, a non-for-profit organization established in 1977, and is also a member at the Miami Springs Women's Club since 2021. I am thrilled to introduce Karen Prescott, award-winning community leader, visionary author, speaker, chronic pain, and leadership coach. Born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, Karen Prescott, aka the Bowtie Girl, believes in our ability to harness the power of our minds to create a life of truth and authentic expression. She is the founder and CEO of Bowtie Kids, Courage and Confidence for Kids with Chronic Pain, a social impact organization, and founder and chief statement maker of this fashion brand, the Bowtie Girl. She currently serves as co-vice chair of the NSU MPA and Nonprofit Advisory Board and chair of the Homelessness Committee on the Broward Sheriff Office Social Justice Task Force. She is the founding chair of the Women's Council and creator of the Excuse Me, That's My Seat conference. She also served at the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce Board Director and on the Executive Government Affairs and Nominating Committees. She's the past chair of the Gay and Lesbian Business Exchange Council, being the only woman and woman of color to chair that council. Awarded many community awards for her visionary leadership, honored as one of the Fort Lauderdale's powerful women by Gold Coast Media Group, and has been featured in numerous media campaigns as an advocate for a variety of groups and organizations represented in the diverse South Florida community. She is a powerful, confident, loving woman whose vision for the world is oneness. I am thrilled to introduce Shazette Speaks, attorney, TV host of Jamaican descent. Shazette Speaks is a true Renaissance woman who does not allow society to put her in a box. As an attorney, she enjoys helping her personal injury clients get the justice they deserve. However, after practicing law for several years, she felt called to pursue her second passion, journalism and communications. Since then, Shazette has simultaneously blazed a dual career path, both in law and in communications and media, as a TV host, sought-after speaker, and social entrepreneur. From Cincinnati to Miami, Shazette has emceed and keynoted hundreds of events, including women's conferences, political debates, graduations, awards galas, and much more. In 2018, Shazette established the Speaks Women's Empowerment Conference, a one-day symposium designed to educate, encourage, and transform women leaders. Over 28 speakers included judges, businesswomen, publishers, financial experts, mental health professionals, and success coaches poured knowledge into hundreds of attendees. She also hosts an empowerment event throughout the year. Next up is a networking brunch on April 3rd, 2022. You can also find her on her weekly YouTube show where she discusses hot topics, current events, and personal development. Ms. Speaks is a true believer and a living example of the saying, one should never be confined by or settle for the expectation of others. Follow her on her social media platforms at Shazette Speaks. I'm thrilled to introduce Martini Julico, Haitian. Martini is a blessed wife, the mother of 3 precious children, and a dynamic community advocate focused on Caribbean women. Martini grew up in Haiti. She graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in rehabilitation counseling, then completed her master's degree at Nova Southeastern University in Health Services Administration. She spent the last 25 years working with families to provide practical tools and solutions to empower parents to seek and receive services in the area of child development and work-life balance. But in the last 5 years, she has dedicated her work to concentrate particularly on child development and parent advocacy, along with fetal infant death prevention. Martini positively impacts and enriches organizations with her specialized training as a cultural competency facilitator, a curriculum developer. She is an impactful speaker in the areas of positive living and fetal infant mortality prevention. Here we are in session number 2 of our Caribbean Women Empower Connection Summit. So I welcome each and every one of you again for coming and bringing in the fire that's going to come up, because I know fire is going to be sparked here, and taking the time to be with us. So today we're talking about, and staying in line with International Women's Day theme, breaking gender bias. We will start the conversation, and first I will introduce Christine, as the first question will be directed towards you. How do you define gender bias?
Wow. I think gender bias is multifaceted, and I think it is anytime you attempt to put someone in a box based on their gender, and often in a way that's negative, or that is labeling or limiting. So that can go either way for men or women or anywhere in between. And I have found in my personal life that gender bias is sometimes overt and very clear and sometimes extremely covert. And you question, wait, was that because did that person treat me like I was dumb? Like, wait a second, you know? So gender bias is one of those things that are really deeply embedded in our connections with others, our need to identify. And so sometimes when people don't know better, they just have to put someone in a black and white box, and that causes a lot of issues.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing. Anyone who has a thought behind that? Anybody else have a different view as to what gender bias represent for them? Martin J, MJ, any thoughts?
Actually, I'm right alongside Christine with this one. Anytime you receive a different treatment based on your real or perceived gender, just to put you in a box, that's, to me, that's gender bias. And again, I'm going to echo what she said about being either way, because I have experienced both with men, women, and in various situations. So yeah, I agree with what Christine said.
Interesting, as you bring that up, the other thought that I have as it relates to bias is that it sounds as if it's so similar with dealing with color, with our ethnicity in terms of like our background. So I will bring that topic to Shazette. Shazette, what are your thoughts as it because it seems like it's really similar to those who go with racism and issues of that sort.
Absolutely. I echo the sentiments of the ladies who just spoke. I also would add in a little bit of my legalese, which is it could be disparate treatment or disparate outcome. Oftentimes when we see certain policies put into play, it might not be directly intended, but the outcome may, in fact, only promote certain people, whether it's a certain gender, a certain racial background, ethnicity, religion, etc. So we have to be very careful, even as we are entrepreneurs and we're moving around just in society, that what we're doing is not also having the unintended effect of placing one group of people above another group of people. I will say that as a woman of color, my parents are from Jamaica, raised here in the United States. I definitely have experienced both, kind of like it's conflated. Sometimes you're not sure where you're landing. Is it because I'm a woman or is it because I'm a woman of color? And the legal field, I had to do a little research before I jumped on here. There's only 2% nationally of attorneys are Black women, 2% of all licensed attorneys in the country. So again, I may feel it a little bit different because I'm in South Florida and Miami. I see a lot more and I have a lot more legal, law friends. But nationally speaking, it is quite, disparate. The outcome is disparate. And I can give you some statistics just in terms of my profession as far as partners and who makes partner and the number of associates. It's slowly climbing, but we definitely see both for women and people of color, we are lagging behind.
Interesting perspective. Thank you for all the data. That's really insightful. Any thoughts? Anyone else want to interject a thought pertaining to that? Okay, so then, Dr. Hernandez, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that when I think about gender bias, I think about discrimination. I'm thinking about sexism. I think about that this panel is composed by women, but also with different race and ethnicity. And when you mix those three factors, as Shazette said, sometimes you don't know if they're discriminating against you because of your race or your ethnicity or because you are a woman. And in our case, it's very particular because our experience in this country is different, definitely, from someone who is native from this country. We are all considered like immigrants or outsiders, even though some of you were born in this country, but still we are considered like outsiders. So I just wanted to add that element.
Thank you so much for sharing. Very insightful too. So I will ask a question to Kisha, everyone. Have you experienced gender bias, Kisha? You muted.
Okay, so now I'm unmuted. So, it's interesting. When I was coming on here, I no longer practice optometry. So I kind of had to look at what's happening now. So when I was going to school, it was probably 70% male. It was a male dominated force. And over time, I just looked it up and it's 71% now female,
Wow.
which is huge that it changed. And it's been 20 years. So it's in the last 20 years, the profession went from a male dominated profession to now a female dominated profession, which is quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. You're sharing this, and what's coming up is I wonder how much is attributed to the type of medicine, right?
Definitely.
How many women are choosing that path because of the possibly 9-to-5 component to it, because they may want to become mothers. I just wonder.
No, absolutely. It's very flexible. It's a very flexible job for a parent,
Mm-hmm.
for a single parent, for a married parent. It's a very flexible job. It's also flexible that you can work per diem. So you could work one day and not work the rest of the week and still have time to pick your kids up at school. You can set your schedule. So it's a very encompassing profession for women. And in that way, I believe that's why the shift has changed, that it has made that shift over all these years where it became predominantly female.
Because I actually am I have my oldest daughter who's in the senior currently. So we're continuously having conversation pertaining to her career path, and medicine is one of them. And we find ourselves talking about where in medicine you would want to pursue, what do you want out of life, right? So, do you want to become the mother and the wife, or what are other things that you aspire to be? And how does that play a role? How would that interfere in your ability to be present? So, and this is where, yeah.
Exactly. So, as I said, my husband is also a physician. So, both of us can't be in a job where it takes all of our time. So, as a female, it's a little bit biased to say it's my job to take care of the kids, but I didn't want to give that job away.
Yes.
So you have a choice. I do have a choice to go back to work.
Yes.
And, work full time. And, my kids, of course, a nanny would have to pick them up from school, and they're not old enough to drive yet. They're on their way. But so I did choose to stay home, not full time, but to take care of them.
And that's commendable. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else has a thought?
I'll jump in. It's Karen. The last time I could really think and remember, because I'm a female, born a female, it was in Trinidad. So I wanted, of course, right? I wanted to become a mechanic. I wanted to be a mechanic in Trinidad, and I could not go to school for it because they said it was for male, it was for boys. I was so heartbroken and disappointed. All of my brothers got to be mechanics. I love cars and I love working with my hands. Thankfully now it's different. But also growing up as the eldest of 5, my mom was always telling me, "Oh, you can't do that because you're a girl." I was like, "But Junior's doing it, O'Neill's doing it." She's like, "Well, they're boys." So I feel like as a Caribbean female, that growing up in Trinidad, I have that. Now I can say I really don't pay attention to it. And that's really true. I just do my thing. I do my grind, and I stay focused, and I have the attitude like, if it's really your loss if you don't want to support me in that area. And I just keep moving on to get somebody else to support, or just keep doing my thing, or creating my own platforms, whatever it is I need to do. So now I'm in a different mindset, but back then, I think it still kind of haunts me a little bit, although I had to learn to sew, and now I'm making a living off of sewing. So I love designing. So I was forced into dressmaking and designing in Trinidad, and somehow it turned out to be positive. So see how life works out sometimes.
That is true. It's kind of like, be careful what you wish for. Sometimes you get involved in certain things, you're thinking that's the path for you, but at the end of the day, it could just be what you didn't want to do may benefit you in the long run. So these are all skills no matter what, and you never know when you're going to need it. So thanks for sharing. So I'm going to ask this question to Dr. Hernandez. Have you ever thought your gender has played a role in your missing out on promotion or any opportunities?
Well, I have to say that that most of my supervisors have been women, believe it or not. But the few that I had as men, I would say that it was long time ago. I was a victim of sexual harassment. So it was the first time I visited. I was a consultant right of my master's degree in Puerto Rico, and I was I would say traveling to Philadelphia to be kind of an instructor for construction workers on how to build a workers own a cooperative. And it was traumatic, I would say, that it marked me for a long time. I was, it's an experience that really marked you profoundly. And because I was by myself, I just came for like 6 months to do this consulting job. And now when you realize is power, when you are a victim of sexual harassment, it's not something romantic that is involved. It's really is men trying to have power over you. Because I was like, well educated, independent, and this particular person was he the only way he wanted to or feel power over me was being harassing me on the job. And I would say to add that I did took the organization to court, but for legality, the case was never seen. And it took me time. And at the end, I said, you know what? I have to forgive, because at the end, you end up being double the victim on the first place, and then the victim of your own emotions. And then with the time, I heal it, and I said, I have to forgive. So, but yes, I definitely was a victim of gender bias, discrimination, and an experience that I would say that is not unique, but sometimes women just they just keep quiet and they just keep moving. But I tried to do something, I couldn't. But definitely I tried to also speak with on behalf of other women in that workplace that also were sexually harassed. And when I took the organization I to court, I would say, they have to kind of train their staff and take more precautions in terms of how they were handling the case and the situation in particular. So yes.
Thank you. This is definitely this could be a topic on its own, right? Because there's so many pieces that can be explored as it relates to such harassment as a whole. So thanks for sharing that. It's definitely something to think about. Anyone else have a thought or have experienced a level of gender bias as it relates to getting a promotion or opportunity, missing out on opportunities? Anyone else on the panel?
I'll jump in. You hear me? Okay. I'll be brief, but you brought up something, Dr. Myra, right? I'm saying it correctly? Great. That most of your supervisors were women, and it got me thinking back, the promotions that ended up happening for me, were they because I was reporting to a male or a female? And the answer is because I was reporting to a female. A lot of the big promotions that I've gotten over the years in corporate. And it just speaks to our power as women when we support one another, right? And we see the good in each other, we help one another move forward. And I remember having to report to male vice presidents, male directors, and feeling the pressure and feeling that I had to be louder and feeling that I had to do, triple more so that I could be seen. And I've got past the promotions with them, reporting with them. And at the time when I was past those promotions, I ended up having the same problem. Is it because I'm the colored girl, Caribbean girl, and she's the blonde with the blue eyes that I trained that got promoted? How come that happened, right? So all that to say is I've definitely experienced having situations where I'm like, okay, I'm definitely looking forward to being promoted. I could see happening because my boss was a woman and she was rooting for me and she was pushing for me as another woman, and I would get that promotion versus having a male that I had to report to. It was harder and it hardly ever happened.
Yeah, I agree, Martine. When you were talking, in HR, the field is mostly women, right? And so I've always reported to women as well. But I remember, and I told you guys before, when I moved to Haiti, that's when I realized, because I spent years working in corporate America and really never felt like I actually never paid attention to whether or not I was discriminated against or was there gender bias. I was just myself. I was working in an environment that I absolutely love with a lot of creative people. So I never really experienced it until I moved to Haiti. And it was just everywhere, right? And I mean, there was one instance where I met with a gentleman to do HR consulting with him. And he called me after and told me that it was inappropriate for me to pass out my business cards to his executive team because they would be too happy to jump ship and go, find another job with me. And he told me, it's because you're young. I understand that, you're very pretty and you're very young. And I wondered to myself, would he have spoken this way to a man? Right. So it was a series of things that kept happening. And I said, no, something has to be done about the situation, because I mean, a lot of us are from the Caribbean. We're all from the Caribbean. And so we understand that there's certain fields that you don't go into because you're a woman. There are certain fields that you don't go into because you're a man. Right. And so these types of biases are ingrained in us a lot of the time. And I remember my kids had a career day at school and they all wanted to dress up as soccer players, right? But how are they really going to make it as professional soccer players? I don't know. And my husband was like, why don't you wear like a suit and a tie and show up like a professional? And I said, don't put these thoughts in their minds so early on. Let them dream. Let them think about whatever career they want, because as young children that stay with us, and they either impact us in a negative way so that we feel stuck, right? Or they empower us. And I think for us here on the panel, we're empowered by some of the negative situations that have happened to us. And I'm hoping that what we're doing today is going to kind of create a light for people, and especially men and women and people with just bias in general, right? Because we all have them, right? But you have to learn to understand why you have them and how to walk away from that, right? How to change the way that you're thinking about things. So thank you for sharing that piece about the management and promotions.
Thank you for that, Natalie. May I add a story to this as well, Rochelle? I am thinking about what you just said about how sometimes people's negative experiences that you have really catapults your motivation, your desire to overcome. So when I started my career, I was working in a film studio with 3 men, all 15 years my senior, and they often underestimated me, I would say, or they didn't give me the juicy stuff to do. And sometimes they would give me highly technical film editing work and then sort of like mention later, oh, I'm surprised you were able to get through that so quickly, or, oh, thanks so much, that was quick. Okay, but it was very clear after working there for a short period of time that I was never going to progress. That they were never going to invest in me, that they were never going to pay me well enough. And I left. And as I went through my career, I ended up segueing into teaching, and that's, female dominated career path. But when it came time for me to start my own nonprofit, I, started talking to people in the community. And so often I was told, hey, this is going to eat you up. You're a mom. Like, this is going to swallow you whole. You're not going to be able to keep up. And, even finishing my master's degree and preparing to have a baby, I was told by extended family on the other side, just that, don't you want to quit? Don't you want to quit so you can really focus on babies? And I was like, I'm just going to do both. Like, I'm going to do both. And then, when it came time to start my nonprofit, I'm going to start the nonprofit. It's going to be great. And I'm going to do it while taking care of my 2 children. And I think women, our power is in bringing in community support. So while, we've all seen that racetrack of the woman next to the man, and we've got all the hurdles and the laundry and the cooking, I'm doing all of that plus running an organization while my counterparts are able to do much more. But here's the thing, like, I've learned to multitask. I've learned to bring in community support. And so I'm keeping up. But I do see that my counterparts leading organizations who don't have the children or who are more free, are often in more places. And so my focus is, how can I be the best at what I'm delivering? And I think that's worked for me so far.
That's actually beautiful. Yes. And this reminds me of also, I have a story. And I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Myra, we were in the same institution at the time when that story happened. So as a social worker, I work in an institution, in a hospital setting in Pennsylvania, where I was in charge of many of the child abuse cases. And I remember this one case that happened, but I wasn't there. So I come back to and I come back to review the cases. And then I had questions as to why certain things didn't, the process in which things were addressed or not addressed. And that led to mainly the male-dominated physicians and asking, how dare she question us as to why certain things were not done. But the luck, I really owe it to, I believe it has to do with my upbringing, and I believe it's cultural as well. I think us as Caribbean women, and I guess women as a whole, we tend to really do not shy away from our voices when we believe in something, when we stand true to our belief system. So I remember it was clear to me that they were going to come after me, let it be because I dared to question it. Either my job was going to be on the line, or they were going to try to intimidate me to change the course of my evaluation of the case. And talk about support even within the workforce. We had to have a whole interdisciplinary meeting where I was put on the spot to answer, to really basically question me as to how dare you ask such question. I don't know what it had. I don't know if it was faith or if it was just my upbringing or who I was. And I think my voice, I've always been a person that used my voice. And this is why I'm such an advocate for women and everyone to own their voices. I stood my ground, and I even led to the question of asking if that particular patient lived on the other side of the town, would a report be reported? At that moment, I was called so many different names. How dare me, and then I'm calling the race card, and I didn't bring race. I was just talking about social, social setting. And I remember Myra was there, and she was one of the few that stood by me as part of she was one of our colleagues at the time, to be like, yes, we're questioning this too. And from my understanding today, talk about almost 20 years ago, this case is still being talked to in that institution. And that incident is being talked to, because I dare to open my mouth specifically to a lot of department heads, physicians, to ask them why they didn't feel the need to make a report on a particular case. Because when I've done my research, when I first got into that facility, there were so many cases being reported on one side of town versus another side. And the justification as to why this case was just an accident as opposed to neglect baffled me. So, but because I believe this is where gender bias came in, because I was much younger by then, by much older men. And I do believe also, I was from New York, the color of my skin, all that played a role, because even the institution were predominantly, I mean, you could count a few, I think the percentage of people of color there was just like slim to none. So all that came apart. And it made me realize also the state I was living in, because you believe, you go to, depending on where you move to, you believe the demographic a certain way. And until you move there, you realize how like the culture of the town that you live in, the community you live in, is totally opposite of what you think. So Caribbean women were not there necessarily, not that many. There was so many different pieces there. And also I remember finding myself in other places where the fact that I was from the Caribbean was an issue. Being told that you're not this because you're Caribbean, or you're just Haitian, as if Haitian it's part of your, it's my ethnicity, it's my cultural background, but I'm still a Black woman standing, showing up. But that the differentiation that's being done with other counterpart was also interesting. So I think it's the gender bias can be spoken of so many different things. It actually overflows from the gender to race to ethnicity to religious affiliation and all that as well. So, but I think it's a good conversation to be had, because we should not allow ourselves to be silent because of that. We should not allow ourselves to not take action to become who we want to become, because we fear what the ramification of being a woman or a woman of color or being a woman of the Caribbean. And I know not many of us have experienced that, and sometimes it's very subtle. It's a matter of us really paying attention to that, being in tune to these issues, to know when it's actually showing up and when it's not. Which leads me to the next question, and I'll bring that to Martini and then we push it back to Kisha, is how do you raise awareness?
Oh, wow. Bringing awareness is no small beast, because everybody has a voice. And these days it seems like different voices are coming from different areas. Quite a few people are trying to get themselves heard. And I feel that first and foremost, respect has to be the basis of everything. Offering something. You don't come and say, I have a voice, and you're trying to force yourself in, though I do understand that it is necessary at times. So if I'm going to speak about my area of expertise, I can tell you that raising awareness for the fetal and the infant arena, and including the mothers, is something that's very sexy these days. Everybody's talking about it, especially after quite a few incidents happened. Namely, the biggest one in the past few years has been Serena Williams, almost dying because she wasn't heard as a Black female. I have to deal with this every day. I have to hear that story all the time, because I interview those moms. I connect with them on a daily basis. So raising awareness to something that's already sexy is not that difficult. When you start getting to what our community needs and you bring solutions, you sit back, you analyze, you come with respect, you come with solutions, people tend to listen. It's not that difficult to make that much noise. And when I say you sit back and you observe, you also have to know who the main players are in the community. You have to respect their position in the community, see where they stand, and see if you can submit your suggestions to them. And that way you can show, okay, well, I'm not here just to push my point because I know how important it is, the work that I do. I also want you to understand that I'm here to help you, because in your position, having a big talking point like this one is definitely going to get you in a different position. You're going to be above the average person who wants to push their own agenda. So, like I said, I think I wish I remembered that quote word for word, but the idea was one that I'm very crazy about, and I try to practice it as much as I possibly can. Came from something Martin Luther King said, and it operated under the premise that if you take the time to see where another person is in need, and you tend to their need, you're very easily going to be able to bring your grievances up. They will be able to listen to you as well. So when it comes to community awareness, that's what I do. I sit back, I observe, I see where the need is, and I see where I can plug in my expertise. And so far, it's been going very well. My plate is very full.
Thank you. I see that Suzette had her hands up, so go
So
ahead.
I think you might have wanted someone else to comment first. Sorry. Okay, I'll comment now. And then I'm sorry for skipping. From what I'm hearing, and I think, you have your macro and you have your micro solutions. And I think I'm better suited to talk about just that individual on your level in your workplace, ways in which we can try to impact when we see gender bias, I think, is to respect and advocate one another's right to self-determination. I think when it comes to fairness and self-determination, we know when we see, someone being treated a little bit differently. We know when we think, oh, wow, that person just cut that woman off or stole that woman's idea or just said that was, called her or tried to put her down, et cetera, et cetera. I think what you spoke of just in your own story, Rachel, is that someone else stood up with you. So I think we have to really be aware and be vocal when we start to see these things and speak up and advocate right alongside the person it's happening to, so that in turn, if it does happen to you, we stand together. I would also advocate for women serving, and men for that matter, serving as mentors and sponsors. I have never gotten a job in America without somebody looking out. I know you posted the ad. I know you placed it on whatever website, but I can just tell you even now, most of the opportunities I get is vis-a-vis a network, people who you know, people putting in a word for you. And I think that has been something that has informally served our male counterparts so well. I don't think they wrote rules against women in that regard, but there has been in the past kind of an implicit segregation of mentorship and sponsorship. And I think it's up to all of us to kind of encourage, whether you are a woman of color, a different ethnicity, different language, LGBTQ, whatever your background is, there is a way you can mentor or sponsor someone. And again, it does not even have to be just woman to woman. I think there are a lot of men, and in my career, I've experienced that as well, who have been fantastic sponsors and sponsors. The difference is the sponsor speaks up and can open the door for you to meet with that partner or to go on that interview. They actually can pull strings that a mentor may just be able to give you guidance on. So I think that kind of real life pick a person, a young woman or someone in your office or, within your circle, your network that you can help to show the ropes to, mentor in some way. I know we're all busy, but I think that would also help. And again, self-determination. I heard one sister say she wants to stay home and raise her kids. I heard another sister say she want to go to work and run a nonprofit. They're both wonderful. They're both wonderful. I respect them equally. And I really always caution, women have, again, self-determination. One may want one way. It's not wrong. One may want another way. I have plenty of friends who they bring home the bacon and their husband takes care of their kids and it works for them. So again, whatever works for you, just give me a fair shot. Stay out of my way. And hopefully, as we see those things in the workplace, we will speak up and become advocates for fairness and equality in self-determination.
Thank you for sharing that.
I wanted to add a quick little something in there. I hear Suzette talking, and something else came to mind when you're talking about we need to support each other. I feel that one of the downsides of gender bias has been that it kind of created some kind of a competition between us women. And you mentioned, the guys, they got their backs, they got each other's backs. And it's just now that it's something awesome that women are watching for each other and trying to mentor each other and being there for each other. And we got to kind of like go back to the source where, you know, having that gender bias thing happen created a breeding ground to me for some kind of competition when we can be so much stronger together. I mean, look at all of us here. If we take a minute to see each other, then we're able to complement one another and be stronger. But with the gender bias thing coming in way back when, well, it made for a slower start for that kind of organization, that networking, that strong fabric that we're trying to make. So that's where I see gender bias kind of putting a monkey wrench in the work we're doing.
Martine, I loved what you said, because of course there was competition, right? When we were so few, like, let's take corporate America, right? If you were in a department, we were so few women in the department that of course there was competition, because there was also just one spot available, right? And so if who's going to take it? And so now you're competing with the people that are supposed to support you, which I love the fact that we're kind of reverting back to the supportive women that we are with each other, rather than competing with each other. It's more of a support, and I'm seeing it in so many different places now, and it's very heartwarming, because I don't want to be in competition with anybody, right? I want to lift you up, and I want you to lift me up, and I think that the competition is with yourself, right? Compete to be better, compete to think better, compete to think differently, right? Rather than competing with other women or men, for that matter, because there's no competition there.
Oh, great stuff. I just kind of want to jump in a little bit.
Go ahead. Kisha gets it.
So how do we bring awareness? For me, I want to step back a little bit and say, first of all, a lot of times it's unconscious, right? Because things have been so automatically trained and we've been developed, and it's just unconscious. So first of all, we bring awareness ourselves. Start being conscious and mindful and present with that. And if we all are honest, we are all biased at some degree or the other. I have caught myself, I'll tell you, many times, and I have to check my own self. But also, when we get in positions and we become aware, then we change the narrative. And we all powerful women that's on this panel here today, and we can do that. So some of them have the superpower. Some of us have the superpower to do it quietly. Some have the superpower to do it loudly. Whatever your superpower is, embrace it and make a difference. But it starts with us.
Take it, Kisha.
So yeah, I would like to agree with you guys. There's power in numbers. We have to stick together and try to rise up together, because once you're together, you can't fail. There's always somebody trying to hold you back, but when you're together, you can go forward no matter what you're going through. And women have a remarkable way they used to be able to do this so well. And something happened where we became competition for each other, but now we need to embrace each other again and hold each other up. They're trying to hold us down. We can't let that happen, ladies.
Can I add something, Rochelle? Thank you.
That's true.
That's fantastic. That awareness piece also for me includes creating more seats at the table. I think there's this red herring, if you will, that there's only one seat for fill in the blank at the table. And that's what creates the unnecessary competition. But I digress. If I may, I had pulled up and I wanted to share this just from a legal perspective. The ABA Journal, the American Bar Association, their premier publication, put out an article during Black History Month of this year, talking about the numbers. And I just wanted to share so you can understand where we are, because also when I think it was Kisha raised that there are more people in schools, I always go back to, are they making the same money? Are they staying in the career compared to men, et cetera, et cetera? So even within law school, we're seeing a little bit of a bump, but it's not always going to equal higher pay or equal pay, et cetera. So according to this report, the representation of lawyers of color in law firms increased, lawyers of color as a whole, that's everybody, from 16.98% in 2019 to 17%. But think about that. That's total law firms across the country, lawyers of color representing in 2020, 17.95%, right? And I'll go to the female lawyers of color increased in firms from 8.73% in 2019 to 9.32. Remember, there's only 2% of us across the country in 2020, right? And as a whole, in terms of all female lawyers, they went from representation in firms from 36% in 2019 to 37%. So we're seeing more even in law schools, but when it comes to representation in firms, that number is slowly creeping up. The percentage of Black associates surpassed 5% in law firms for the first time in 2020. I just wanted to point that out. But there are increases in Asian Americans and some other groups. But yeah, despite modest growth in 2020, Black women and Latina women each continue to represent 1% of all partners. You see, so we're more in law school, but as far as the top earners in the profession, 1% is made up by Black and Latina women. So we have quite a ways to go. I don't always, go with statistics because you can make statistics kind of representative of many things. However, I do think there's some truth behind them, and we got, more, like I say, maybe access to getting in to the profession, but we got to do the work on the back end when we become, the decision makers of the professions.
I just
Go ahead.
want to add one more thing is that we as women, we have to achieve better political representation. Because the thing is, for someone mentioned equal pay. Well, that's a legislation, a bill that have been there pending and have not been approved. Why? Look at the composition. The majority of them, legislators, they are men. So, why is still there stuck? Well, we need more representation. We need more women in the government, not just the government, but as a politician. So just to add to the conversation, that very important element for our, I would say, take more power, because we are not represented out there. And I will say that the reproductive rights is being threatened. Who is out there? Men. So just to add that to the part of our conversation.
Wow, this has been quite a conversation, and we could stay here forever. I know I can, and this has been everything that I wanted and more. So I appreciate each and every one of you for taking your time. I know your time is precious, and time is money. So I do appreciate you taking the time and showing up and taking part in this amazing summit, because without you, I don't think this summit would be what it is. So I appreciate each and every one of you. There's more to conversation to be had. I think that so many different components we could go into that, and I plan on to. So my goal is to continue this conversation moving forward. And I appreciate you taking the time to showing up with us as a collective, right? Because this is how we grow, and empowering all the women and young men and young girls out there to understand our voice, understand who we are, how we're showing up, and know that they too can do the same, so that the level of respect and honor can be there. So I thank each and every one of you for coming in, joining with us, and there's more to come from this, and I appreciate you. And I know for some it was the first time ever being on panels, but you did it. So thank you.